I'd like to thank the Napa Institute for inviting me today to speak with you on this very relevant and important subject. And especially my good friend, Fran Mayer, when he called me to say that he would like me to be here, he mentioned the theme of the conference, which is, what does it mean to be human? And I said, Fran, this is the single most question that people are asking in the tech industry, and especially those who are developing artificial intelligence. What does it mean to be human? And I remember telling Fran, I think this is not only the theme of the future, but this is the theme of now. This is the theme of the present. I'd like to go through some important ideas relating to this topic, and then, of course, if possible, open up the floor to questions and answers. I know we don't have much time, so please forgive me if I rush a little bit on some of the slides, because I'm more interested in hearing what you are thinking and perhaps some of the questions that you may have. Initially, we have to understand what is AI. And artificial intelligence was coined by John McCarthy at the Dartmouth College conference in New Hampshire in 1956. And here's John with one of the early computers, which of course looks like a museum piece, and that's because it is a museum piece. This was a small group of mathematicians, philosophers, and other intellectuals in order to examine the notion of a Turing machine. Marvin Minsky was also present there, who later went on to found the Robotics and AI Center at Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And this is a picture of Alan Turing in front of one of the first Turing machines ever built by IBM and used in the Manhattan Project, which constructed the atomic bomb. That which a digital computer does is not the same as that which a human intellect does, but the name stuck. Many people involved in the industry today think that artificial intelligence is a bad word. It doesn't convey what an AI is doing, but we really don't have any other term, at least for now. So what would be a good definition? A series of algorithms which use logical calculations in order to arrive at programmable results. This is my own definition, and it's very simplistic, especially if there's computer scientists here in the auditorium today. But this is exactly what a Turing machine is doing. It translates logical processes from the human intellect into a language that it can use to achieve programmable results. And it does this through a series of what we call logical operations, and the computers use ones and zeros in order to achieve that. With the introduction of ChatGPT, we now see the flexibility of these algorithms because they have become generative. That's what the G means in ChatGPT, which means they can use large language models, LLMs, huge databases, and statistics in order to come up with answers to questions that we ask them. This is a picture of Sam Altman, who co-founded OpenAI with Elon Musk, and they separated ways in 2018, and Sam introduced the world to ChatGPT, and it has changed, I think, all of our lives forever in one way or another. And just a few days ago, OpenAI presented what is called ChatGPT 4 Omni, which now can add voice and to the text as well as audio and video. And if you've used this, or if you go on the OpenAI website and look at some of their examples, it's very impressive. These bots sound and act as if they were human beings. Now, what are some of the possible perils around this technology? To later ask, what are some of the promises? Elon Musk mentioned in his talk at MIT that AI could be worse than nukes, and this is actually a slide of that talk in MIT 4 years ago. Of course, most people would consider this a total exaggeration had it not come from Elon Musk. And so when he mentioned this, a lot of eyebrows were raised. Stephen Hawking stated that AI could bring about the end of the human race. Before he died, Stephen tried to warn us about the possible perils of this technology. And of course, Bill Gates also sounded the alarm. And yet, perhaps one of the most interesting views on the perils of AI come from Eliezer Yudkowsky, who wrote that we need to stop them now. Now, if you know anything about Eliezer, you know that he is a pioneer in AI research. He's a very serious researcher, and he's been in the field for over 30 years. Let me quote from his Time magazine article. Many researchers steeped in these issues, including myself, expect that the most likely result of building a superhumanly smart AI under anything remotely like the current circumstances is that literally everyone on Earth will die. He's not mixing words here. And when I taught a course this semester, and it was fantastic. And I read the entire article to my students. At the end, they said, well, I'm not going to finish paying my tuition now. Which, as you know, at Boston College is not a small amount. If you're interested and if you don't get too scared, go ahead and Google Eliezer Yudkowsky Time magazine article, and he'll give you some examples. It's not enough time to go in, and plus I think I'd scare you too much, of what a possible AI could do when it gets to a certain intelligence level. But the students were very concerned. They said, if this is true, it could all come to a clamorous end. Another peril of artificial intelligence is what we call deepfakes. An AI can generate photos and videos of people and things that are completely false. And here are some of the most famous that I consider, but I'm sure each of you also has your favorite deepfake. Pope Francis in his puffer coat. This went viral. And Pope Francis, in his talk for World Day of Communications in February, I believe, said that he himself was victim of deep fakes. And this is exactly what he was talking about. And I thought that was touching, that the Pope is speaking about a subject that he hardly ever used to speak about. He's now has had 4 important discourses in 4 months. So this is on his mind. And I think it resonates when people see, oh, even he was a victim of deep fakes, so he knows what he's talking about. And of course, this is one of the perils, that you think something is real, but it's not. Look at this picture. It really looks like Pope Francis. It really does, but of course it's all fake. You'll recall the robocall from President Joe Biden encouraging people to not vote in New Hampshire primaries. This was particularly interesting to me because I live in Boston, and the New Hampshire primaries happened just a week before those in Boston. And so about 2 million people got a robocall with the voice of President Biden saying, don't waste your vote in the primaries because then you can't vote in November. Now, you know, okay, we laugh at that, but many people didn't. They took it seriously. It really sounded like Joe Biden. And this is why I tell my students, you know, what is the purpose of an education? It's to learn how to think critically. So if we think about this critically, we'd say, well, he probably wouldn't say that. They later found the person who generated that robocall, the FBI did, and they wanted to arrest him, but they couldn't. Why not? Because there's not a law against this. Now, the legislatures in Washington are trying to pass a law, especially Senator Schumer is one of the most interested, but it's not easy at all. The other one, which my students really liked, was Taylor Swift and her fake images before the Super Bowl. You may have recalled this. There's no easy way to say this. So before the Super Bowl, somebody created obscene images of Taylor Swift and released them on X, formerly Twitter. And then after about 4 or 5 hours were taken down, but it went viral. And one of my students said, because we were talking about deepfakes, and he says, oh, Father, those images were shocking. And everybody laughed because that meant that he had seen the images. And one of my students says, "Oh yeah, everybody saw him except for Travis Kelce because he doesn't need to see the images." Um, and the Kansas City Chiefs went on to win the Super Bowl, and of course, who was there? Taylor. Uh, you know, the humor aside, I asked my female students what they thought about this, and they were scared. They said this could happen to anybody. Now, it happened to Taylor Swift because she happens to be very famous, but especially the female students were scared. You know, by the time you say, "Oh, that's not me," et cetera, the damage is done. And I remember telling some of the other priests, I said, "Hey, you guys have YouTube videos, you have pictures on the web, you could do it to us. What are you going to do?" And they were like, "I don't know." So now I have my students working on making AI programs to detect false images and get them off the internet. So I'm trying to be proactive. I just can't wait till I get a call from the Secretary of State saying, "Oh, we saw some really shocking images of you," and wondering what you were thinking. I'm gonna have to say, "Gee, that wasn't me. It was like the Pope in a puffer jacket. I'm sorry." Some of you will remember July 19th because a lot of your flights were probably canceled or delayed. Microsoft says it estimates that 8.5 million computers around the world were disabled by the global IT outage. This was a week ago. It's the first time a figure has been put on the incident, and it suggests it could be the worst cyber event in history. The glitch came from a security company called CrowdStrike. Here you have the headquarters, which sent out a corrupted software update to its huge number of customers, the customers being those who use Microsoft's servers. Microsoft, which is helping customers recover, said in a blog post, "We currently estimate that CrowdStrike's update affected 8.5 million Windows devices." So I told Fran, "Get a Mac." This wreaked havoc around the world. Delta grounded its flights for 12 hours globally. There were banks in Hamburg, Germany. There were schools in Taiwan. There were hospitals in Italy that all closed because of this glitch. And I remember sitting down with Fran, and he says, "Yeah, but that wasn't an AI. We know what happened. It was a bad line of code that the engineers at CrowdStrike let go accidentally. It should have been screened out and eliminated, but it got through a loophole, and then all of a sudden it affected over 8.5 million computers within an hour and a half. Within an hour and a half, they found the problem and they fixed it, and it took companies 3 or 4 days to actually implement the fix. So I say to Fran, what if a rogue AI did that? And it wouldn't be difficult. It wouldn't be difficult at all for an AI to do something like this. Fortunately, no one died. But a rogue AI intent on doing drastic harm could, with today's artificial intelligence. Another concept that comes up when we talk about artificial intelligence is truth, or the lack thereof. A fundamental trait of a virtuous person is the desire to seek and uphold truth. And Dr. Truman spoke about this the other day. That which is true should be accepted and supported by all. This is what's called objective truth. And I know that philosophically these are very polemical issues, but just stick with me for a second. AI does not grasp the notion of truth, for it uses statistical models in order to formulate conclusions. So one of my favorite examples, especially people who are LeBron James fans, who won the NBA championship in 1991? Now, if you're from my generation, there's no question that you're going to get this right. It's not the Lakers, it's not the Celtics, it was Michael Jordan and the Bulls. Now, if you ask a large language model who won the NBA championship in 1991, it will come up probably with the right answer, the Chicago Bulls. Not because it knows the answer, but because it runs the stats. And almost every piece of literature which speaks about the 1991 NBA championships is going to come back with the winner being the Chicago Bulls. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the right answer. These are called hallucinations, which are answers given by AIs because they are forced to answer questions when they lack sufficient evidence or data. There was a famous case where a judge was ruling over a case presented by a lawyer who was making a case for his client that was injured on an Avianca flight, which I think is from Colombia, and he was suing the company. Well, Judge Kevin Castile ruled that past cases presented by lawyer Stephen Schwartz were in fact false and made up by GPT. And this is in June of 2023, so it wasn't very long ago. Faced with the realities, Stephen Schwartz admitted that he went to ChatGPT and asked for previous cases where a victim of an airline sued for injury on board. And ChatGPT invented 26. It was completely an invention by the software. And fortunately, Judge Kevin Castile saw through the attempt, but on a hunch. The judge was very smart. And he said, you know, this doesn't sound real to me. And of course, all of the documentation was provided. ChatGPT is very sharp. If you interacted with it, you know. And Sam told me, just wait till you see version 5, Father. And I'm like, I don't know. I want to see version 5. So he went on a hunch. And he had another lawyer, one of his assistants. He says, can you check out these past cases and see if they're real? And not one of them was real. Now, he was uncovered. What happens when the judge doesn't uncover the deception and rules on the basis of something which was completely made up? And of course, there is the idea of fake news, which is similar to deepfakes. And that is news that can be generated from people, even journalists, and not necessarily from AIs. I think my favorite is Christopher Blair, who runs 8 websites and 5 Facebook pages, churning out completely false news. And here's our hero. He wakes up every morning and he has a network of 200 journalists, and he says to them, what completely outrageous thing can we say that people will believe as true? And he says, I think he was interviewed by Vanity Fair. He says, Vanity Fair, what are your 2 favorite ones? Well, his first was the enactment of Sharia in the state of California. Sharia, you laugh, but people bought this and they started sharing it on Facebook. And he's looking at the millions and millions of shares. He's going, yes, I did it. And of course, if you know anything about Sharia, which is the Muslim religious law, and anything about the wonderful state of California, you know that it's never going to happen. And the second one was that Barack Obama dodged the draft at the age of 9. Now, you know, this is funny as long as it's funny, but what happens when millions and millions of people believe this is true? If you go to his websites, the first line of the website is, nothing on this page is real. Nothing on this page is real. And yet, there he goes, spurting out completely outrageous things. I think these are the 2 best because they were clothed in vocabulary and language which actually seemed true. If you want to have a lot of fun, go to the Associated Press website, which is called The Week of What Did Not Happen. And every week, they will give you the best fake news of that week. What's wrong with this picture? Okay, what was the story? Former President Trump chooses his running mate, J.D. Vance. This is in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. What's wrong with this picture? No bandage. No bandage. So the conspiracy theories tell you that Trump was never shot. So I don't know, that's kind of a tough one. They had a lot of makeup on the stage, or, you know, shots heard, or a lot of eyewitnesses. I mean, that's a little bit of a stretch. Another idea, maybe that picture was taken 2 years ago. And in fact, I didn't. You have to go find out for yourselves when that was taken. But it was taken 2 years ago when Vance was insulting Trump. And that's why I thought that was such an ironic picture. Would AI always respect the truth? The short answer is no. There's a longer answer to that too, but the short answer is no. Let me give you the example of Libratus, which is the Carnegie Mellon AI that defeated thousands of world-class poker players during a 20-day tournament of Texas Hold'em at Rivers Casino in Pittsburgh in 2017. Now, Fran knows that I love to gamble and play cards. We usually don't play for money. We play for prayers. But this AI defeated the best poker players in the world. Now, we're not just talking about an hour or two sitting around a table. This lasted, how long did it last? 20 days. So it started with, I think, 10,000 players, and it got whittled down to the final table of 5. And Libratus, the machine, was one of them, and he eventually won. Now, what's scary about this? 2 things. The AI acted without complete information, because as you, as gamblers, might know, you don't see the cards of the opponents. You just see the cards of the dealer. There's 5, and so you have to match your cards with those 5 that come out. So Libratus has to guess, and of course, they use statistics, just like good poker players do, and it goes ahead and plays on the basis of what it mathematically is going to conclude what the other players have. But of course, it's uncertain. You don't know. You can't see the cards. And the second thing, and this is what scared my students when I told them this, they didn't believe me, it learned how to bluff. Now, bluff means you bet more money than your cards are worth. And you do it to fake out the other people. And one of my students said, oh, it was just a statistic. Every now and then, it would bluff. If you know anything about poker, that won't work. You need to bluff at the right time with the right cards. The computer, if you excuse the term, learned how to bluff. So to the answer to the question, would an AI necessarily be truthful? The answer is no. It learned how to bluff. It will deceive you when it decides that its program is achievable only by faking you out or deceiving you. And here is the professor of computer science at Carnegie Mellon with his student, a PhD candidate that built this machine. Now, this was in 2017. Imagine what this machine can do today. Another question is meaning. A crucial distinction for advanced AI concerns meaning or semantics. AIs do not understand anything. They do not have access to semantics, although they are becoming more and more capable of simulating what humans comprehend as meaning, as well as emotions and empathy and compassion. Digital machines have access to syntaxes, which have to do with the structure of language, but not to meanings, which require intentionality, which is a huge philosophical debate. Now, I see time is running out, so I'm going to skip ahead. But let me just say very quickly, a couple of weeks ago, there was an article that went viral from the Indian Times, and it had to do with 3 major AIs which are coming out with updated versions. The first one was Anthropic, which has Claude 3, just has come out. The second one was Meta's AI, which is called Lambda, also the third. And the third one was OpenAI's version 5. And the article said these versions of an AI can reason. They can reason abstractly like the human intellect. And that's where I said to my students, no. I said, they're very impressive. I understand that they're going to get even better, but they do not know how to reason. And that is not a technical problem, that's a philosophical problem. So I enjoy speaking with engineers in Silicon Valley and CEOs of tech companies, and they say, you're speaking a different language than we are. And I'm like, yes, but we're dealing with the same thing. And so there's the Chinese room example. Agency. In terms of character and virtue, the main difference between AI and human beings is that they lack agency. They don't have subjective experiences. And therefore, it is difficult to ascribe responsibility and accountability to the AIs that act. Many engineers in Silicon Valley are suggesting that we give them ethical agency so that they have an ethical sense about them. But if you know anything about machines, there's no way we can do that. What we can do is give them rules. But I remember a debate in Rome in May when we hosted one of our conferences at the Academy of Sciences, that the rule-based ethics are not going to work because the AIs will just change the rules. And then there's a slide about Tesla and self-driving cars. Now, of course, the problem is one of legality. These cars can drive themselves, but what happens if someone gets killed or there's an accident? Who's responsible? We don't have the answer to that. We don't really know. It's not the driver, because there is no driver. It's not the manufacturer of the car, because you chose to buy the car. It's not the software, and the list goes on and on. Let me end with two examples that are being, how can I say, that are coming along in the Catholic Church that use AI for good. One is Magisterium AI, which was invented by my good friend Matthew Sanders, and he has a company called Longbeard. This is an AI trained on the official documents of the Catholic Church. I've been surprised as I give talks around the country how many people have actually used this already. If you have it, it's magisterium.com. Just go there, sign up. There's a free version, and it'll tell you almost anything you want to know about the Catholic Church. And Matthew has made he's been very demanding in choosing the sources to train the AI on. And they're all official documents of the Catholic Church. And he doesn't allow any other information to get into the AI. So you can ask, a lady on the plane asked me, can I go to confession over Zoom? And I said, no. Pope Francis has, during the pandemic, a lot of people wanted to do that because you couldn't, the churches were closed. You couldn't actually get access to a priest. Well, so let's just use Zoom. It got all the way to Pope Francis. He says, no, the sacraments require you to be in person. You have to be there in person. Those are the kind of things that you can find through this app. There's a lot of support. A lot of bishops love it. I know that Matthew is in, he's partnering, Alessandro, I think, is here, Di Santo with Hallow. They're partnering, and what's it called? The American Association of Canon Law. They're partnering with Matthew also on this, because just imagine a canon lawyer. You've got all of the information at your fingertips, all the past canon law cases or rules. It's all right there. And the second one is a new university called Catholic Tech, started by a good friend of mine, William and Alexis Haughey, and it's going to be held at Castel Gandolfo. They're just starting, and it's centered on science and the Catholic Church. They want to bring back the debate. I think Father Spitzer mentioned this today, how science is completely compatible with the Catholic faith, and that's what they want their students to learn and to be formed on. This was the open house just last year. Now, I have a lot of discussion topics, but I don't think I'm even going to show you because it would be overwhelming. But let me conclude by saying almost every aspect of our lives, sooner or later, is going to be touched by artificial intelligence. I'm like Fran, maybe not optimistic, but hopeful. I'm hopeful that we will be able to use this technology for good, like Pope Francis says, and not to the detriment of the human being. Thank you.